Hey, every one of us wants to take cool photos, right? And many of us cannot afford a DSLR. I consider myself lucky as well as blessed to have a DSLR. But hey, what about those people who cannot? Can't they take cool photos? Can't they take their photos to, next level? And can't they be a photographer? So let me tell you guys, you have an awesome camera right in your pocket. So if you want to take your photos to the next level and want to be a photographer with just using your smartphone, then watch this video till the end because I have 3 professional tips for you that will take your photos to the next level. So hey, without wasting any more precious time, this is Parthavir from the Tech Geek and let's get started. So let me tell you guys, you need to invest your money in at least a good smartphone. If you lower your budget than 8,000 or 7,000 rupees, then you're not going to get a good smartphone. The phones that are priced from 10,000 rupees to 20,000 rupees has a decent camera, so invest your money on those smartphones or else you cannot take good photos. Now after you have bought a good smartphone, now let's move on to the tips which you should follow to take your photos to the next level. Now the first tip which I have is very crucial. You should start using it right from now. So the first tip is start using professional mode. Now auto mode is basically designed for the people who wants to take quick snaps of documents and any other things, but for you people, you enthusiasts, professional mode is designed for you all. So start using professional mode. There are 5 basic parameters which is present in a phone's manual mode. So let me tell you and let me explain you briefly these 5 parameters. So let me tell you guys, aperture is not going to be a parameter in those 5 ones because your phone does not have variable aperture. I guess 2 smartphones from Samsung has that feature, but your budget smartphone does not have it. So let us move on to the 5 parameters. Now the 5 parameters are shutter speed, ISO, focus, exposure, white balance. Now let us start from shutter speed. Now shutter speed is basically the time taken by your shutter to open and close the shutter to take the snap. Now let me tell you guys, shutter speed is really easy to understand, and you need to explore different shutter speeds to find out the one perfect shutter speed which will suit your photo. So shutter speed is basically the time when the shutter opens and closes to take the snap. Now if it's a bright sunny day and you bump up your shutter speed, you will get a properly exposed shot. But if it's a bright sunny day and you are lowering down your shutter speed, then you will get an overexposed shot. So in simple words, the more the shutter speed, less light into your photo, and the less the shutter speed, more light into your photo. So you need to decide what shutter speed will suit your photo perfectly, and you need to set that shutter speed. Quick way of understanding shutter speed is that use all the shutter speed and find out what shutter speed would suit your photo perfectly. The only way to learn it is by implementing this. So you need to set the perfect shutter speed which will make your photo perfectly exposed and make the photo look good. So that was the shutter speed. Now let's move on to ISO. Now ISO comes into handy if you do not have a tripod or a stand and you're doing night photography. So during night photography, what happens if you lower down your shutter speed, then the photo becomes shaky because your hands are not capable enough to hold the phone for for the time the shutter opens and closes, and this results in a shaky image. So what you need to do is you need to bump up your ISO. Now you have one restriction here. If you bump up your ISO too much, then you're going to see noise and grains in your photo which will make the photo dull, and it might not look good in the eyes of the viewers. So what you need to do is you need to balance the shutter speed as well as the ISO perfectly so that your photo looks perfectly exposed and your photo does not becomes too bright or too dull or too grainy or noisy. So you need to decide what ISO and what shutter speed do you need to do night photography. So you need to, as I said earlier, you need to explore all the parameters to get the perfect shot. Now, so that was ISO. Now let's move on to the third parameter, which is focus. So focus is really easy to understand. You need to set different focus and see at what point your subject is focused perfectly. So you need to set that focus and take the snap. That's all about focus. You don't need to worry about focus so much. So let's move on to the first parameter, which is exposure. Now exposure is basically a way of lighting up your photo. If you want more light in your photo, then you need to bump up your exposure, and if you want less light in your photo, then you need to lower down your exposure. So exposing your photos is really important. You need to set the perfect exposure which makes your photo look not too bright or not too dull. A perfect and optimal amount of exposure is really needed. So you need to set that exposure. So let's move on to the last parameter, which is also really important in photography, but many of us ignore it. So it is white balance. Now white balance is a way of giving different colors to your photo. Now to make your photo look the most natural, you need to set the perfect white balance according to your situation. For example, your phone has, I guess, cloudy, direct sunlight, incandescent, fluorescent, these 4 white balances. It can have more, I don't know. But you need to set the white balance according to the situation which is in front of you and what are you shooting. So for example, if it's a cloudy day, then you need to, set the white balance to cloudy. And if you're shooting in direct sunlight, then you need to set your white balance to direct sunlight. But if you want to give different colors to your photo to make it look a bit different and a bit cool, then you can set different white balances and see what white balance gives a good perception to your photo and a good perception to the viewer. So all these 5 parameters are right in your hand. You need to start playing with all these things and start exploring all these things. That's the only way you can learn photography. A photographer always explores. So you need to start exploring and start using professional mode right from now. That was the first tip. Now let's move on to the second one. So the second tip is also really important, and as a photographer, whether you are using your smartphone to capture it, whether you're using your DSLR or point and shoot, anything, this applies to all the photographers. It is composition of your photo. Now composing your photo or composing your subject is really important, because it's a way by which you can make a different perception in the eyes of your viewer, the person who is seeing your photo. Now you need to find a composition that will instantly create a good impression in the eyes of your viewer, and they will instantly like your photo. So there are many composition guidelines that are available, like rule of thirds, rule of odds, then exposure, then leading lines. I'm going to be explaining the most 2 common of them, which is leading lines and rule of thirds. To understand rule of thirds, you need to turn on the grid option in your smartphone. Now the grid option, the 3x3 grid one, will divide your photo into 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. Now you need to place your subject in those 4 intersection points. Now what it will do is it will create a different perception of the image in the mind of the viewer, and he or she might really like the photo, because it's a different way of interacting with your viewer. Now rather than always placing your subject in the middle of the photo, you can use the rule of thirds to create a different perception in the mind of the viewer. So rule of thirds is a real good composition and you can use it. So let's move on to the second composition, which is leading lines. Now leading lines basically also creates a different perception in the mind of your viewer. For example, if you use leading lines to get to your subject, then it might look real cool. For example, this photo and this photo, I have used leading lines which lead my eyes right onto the subject, and it looks real cool. So those were the 2 compositions. There are lot more compositions available out there, so you can start using all of them and get some awesome shots. So now let's move on to the third tip, which is also a real part of photography, and you might have guessed it, I'm talking about editing. Now editing your photos plays a real big role in making your photos look cool or making your photos look you need to edit your photos so that it creates a very good impression in the mind of the viewer. There are many awesome editing apps available in a Play Store today. There is Lightroom Mobile and there is Snapseed. So I personally use these 2 apps, Lightroom and Snapseed. Do let me know if you want me to make a separate video on editing. You need to start editing your photos so that it looks awesome. So you need to learn editing. And if you want me to make a video separately on editing, then do let me know in the comment section below. I will upload my next video on editing only. So those were the 3 tips which I had for you guys if you want to become a photographer and take your photos to the next level with just using your smartphone. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I guess by the time I upload this video, I will complete 100 subscribers. So thanks a lot for that. I love you guys, and your support motivates me a lot to make a real good content for you all. A lot of awesome contents are there for you all, which I will upload in the coming days. So keep supporting, keep sharing, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video among all your friends if they want to be an awesome photographer by just using their smartphone. Hey, you can beat the ass of DSLR users by just your smartphone. So start using these 3 tips and I assure you, you will find results. So that was about the video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. So this is Parthiv here from VTech Geek, bidding you a goodbye, and I'll be back with a new video real soon. So bye.